Well, here is the documentation of the move, of the trip. I'm going to start with our first trip, the one where we used the big U-Haul truck. It was an adventure. It was, in many ways, successful, in some ways, a disaster, but we made it, and I'm going to give you a little glimpse of that. Oh, and if you're looking around behind me, not only do you see Saber, Saber sitting beside me, which she has been wanting to do a lot lately because she misses Holly. But behind me is, on this side, a lot of stuff from the former owner, and then just some bed frame and stuff. But on this side, there's a mix of both ours and theirs. And this is the game room slash man cave. And I have not had a chance to really do much cleaning up in here. I cleaned it because we used this as our bedroom for 2 weeks, and this was kind of the base station for the cats because they needed a place that they felt like there was some control and a level of security. Their stuff was here. I set up their little cat tree tower thing back there. I set up their cat tree for them right by the window so that they could see out and start to get familiar with their surroundings. I would have the window open so they could start to hear things. They could hear the birds and the frogs and the sounds of the neighborhood. But they're safe. And they stayed pretty much up here for the first few days, and then Saber started to explore all over. Piccola stayed up here pretty much the first 2 weeks until we moved out, and she was kind of forced to explore a little bit more. She's been pretty much all over the house now that it's been over a month, but she doesn't really like being downstairs. She prefers to be up here, and she prefers now to be pretty much in our bedroom. So little by little, she's getting used to things, but I don't expect a lot out of her because she is more timid. But yeah, that's why it's a disaster behind me. This is our temporary office because this was his office, so there's desks set up and places to plug in the computer and that. And I have a great view out the window on this side of me. It's a view of the backyard, and it's beautiful. I can try to show you my view. And yeah, you can see our metal salvage pile down there, but this is a really nice view, especially when the sun is shining. Today, the sun is not shining. Today is a rainy day, a very rainy day. And it's supposed to be all day. We got a lot of work done in the yard yesterday, but today it's indoors, strictly indoors. So, the trip started out fairly smooth. We had drove an hour up to Heber, that's on the other side of the mountains from the valley we live in, and picked up the U-Haul truck because that was the only 20-foot truck that they had anywhere. So we had to drive that far just to get it. Brought it down. We had a car hauling trailer on it, and that was a little bit of a learning curve, but Tim figured it out. I helped a little, but for the most part, he figured it out. And then we loaded up with the help of our two boys and Holly, me, and Haruka. We loaded that truck. And Tim did his Tetris master work at fitting everything in there and balancing the weight and making sure that things didn't slide around. It was quite the masterful loading job that he did, but he did a good job, and it was loaded and we were ready to go. Well, there's the big U-Haul truck. and the trailer for the Mustang. We're pretty close to loaded. Videoing. Cataloging, documenting our journey. And it's pretty full.
Yeah, I think we are at max.
Yep, I agree. Okay, here's some of the story. As I drive, I'll tell you the story. Of course, gotta keep my eyes on the road, but I can still talk and drive. We had rented a U-Haul truck and car hauling trailer, and I didn't ride down from the location where we picked it up in the truck. I followed in my car, and so I didn't have the opportunity to notice any kind of a problem before then. But when we drove away from the house, I rode in the truck, and I could smell, all I could describe it as is like the smell of a vent, a hood vent, when it's ready to be cleaned. It's got grease all over it, that funny kind of burned grease smell. Old grease smell. I don't know. And I said, is that okay that I smell that? And Tim didn't know, and he felt, looked at all the pressure gauges and the temperature, and everything seemed fine, and there was no smoke coming out from anywhere. And so I figured maybe the vents were just dirty. So I didn't worry too much about it just then. And it was kind of off and on the first night. And we were able to get out of the house at night and drive up the canyon. We wanted to avoid early morning rush hour traffic, so we figured we'd get as far as we could that first night. And we were able to make it all the way to Evanston, Wyoming, and everything was fine. The truck wasn't performing great, but it wasn't struggling or anything. We just didn't handle real well, but neither one of us knew if that was normal. So then, after we left Evanston, we got as far as Rock Springs, where we'd got gas, and we paid like $3.60 something a gallon, because as you know, gas prices are nuts right now. We paid $3.60 something a gallon for a full tank of gas. It was almost $100 by the time we got done. And then we headed out. Okay, so continuing saga. Better put the window up so you're not going to be able to hear me. The continuing story is that we left Rock Springs and had gone through construction for about 1.5 miles, maybe 2 miles. And we started smelling something burning, and it was distinct enough that even Tim smelled it this time. So we pulled off into the very first rest area, kind of a truck pull-out rest area that we could find. It was really just a pull-out. There was no like bathrooms or anything there. And we called U-Haul, and they said, we'll get a mechanic right out there. About an hour goes by, and they finally text me, and they say that a mechanic from A&M Mechanics is going to be, or A&M Towing is going to be on his way. Be there in about an hour and a half, because he's coming from Rawlins, Wyoming, which is an hour and 28 minutes away. So we waited, and while we waited, I did a little Google review searching on A&M to see if they are a problem, if they tend to be late. And everybody just loves the guy that runs the A&M Towing. His name is Mark, and they brag about how wonderful he is, how he sorry about that. They brag about how he just goes above and beyond and comes out in all sorts of weather. Well, long story short, I know, too late. We sat on the side of the highway for 5 hours. He finally shows up, has a look at it, makes a bunch of phone calls. The decision is made that the truck cannot be fixed there because the wheel bearing on one side of the front of the truck had melted and possibly damaged the spindle that runs to the other wheel. At least that's my understanding of it. Don't quote me on that. I am not a mechanic. But either way, the truck was not going to be mobile that day. So they got us a hotel in Rawlins. And we pulled the Mustang off the car trailer, which was no small feat because the way that the Mustang went on there, because it's only a 2-door and those doors are really long, the doors don't open all the way when it's on the trailer. And so Tim had to crawl in to get the car started and drive it off the ramp, and then when he drives it back up onto the ramp, he has to crawl out, because we can't leave the windows down because then it's not secure, and it certainly isn't secure from the rain, which we were going to be getting. That sound that you hear is Saber's way of saying, "Are we there yet?" She says it a lot. So we leave the truck and trailer, we drive into Rawlins, we check into the hotel, which felt a little sketch. The parking lot was practically empty, and there was all kinds of big potholes in it. We go in, and the place kind of smells funky. We check in, go to our room, the carpet on the floor is dirty. We get into our room, that carpet isn't amazingly clean, but it's not as bad as the hallway carpet. We're trying to give it some grace because, you know, it is right at the end of winter and people are walking in and out of a dirt parking lot and dragging stuff all over the carpets. So trying to kind of ignore that. But then I sat down on the first bed to see which bed I'm going to use, and I felt the spring right away. So that wasn't going to be the bed I was going to use, and so I sat on the other one, and it was not much better. So Tim went up to the front desk. He asked, and the girl at the front desk was nice enough to give us a room that had new beds, and they were very comfortable. So that worked out okay. We found out that the truck was not going to be fixable anytime soon, and so what U-Haul decided would be the best thing to do is to get us another matching truck, and that they would send movers to unload the first truck and then load it into the second truck. And that all sounds pretty reasonable, and we're just going to have to be in Rawlins for an extra day. So we wait the whole day for all of this to be decided. Where's the truck going to come from? Where the mover's going to come from? We finally find out at the end of the day that they will have the truck there the next morning. Well, the next morning comes, and the truck is a bit delayed because it's coming from Casper, Wyoming, which is hours away. And when it arrives, they say that they can't get the movers over there until they know the truck is there. So when the truck got there, he texted us. We came right over, and I texted U-Haul and said, the truck is here, send the movers. And they said, are you at the truck? Well, not yet. Well, you have to be at the truck before we can send the movers. We can't even contact them unless you're at the truck. So they waited until we got there. We parked behind the truck, and I sent them a text and said, okay, we're here. Get a hold of the movers. Hours go by. I keep asking for updates, and I get no response. Well, finally, I get a notice. They can't find anybody. Go back to the hotel and we'll try again tomorrow. There was no way we were doing that. We have now lost 2 days of this trip. 2 days that we really needed at that new house to get it ready for when we come back and are going to be staying there. So we just tell them, forget it. We will do this ourselves. And we did. Now, they said, well, we'll pay you just the way we would have paid the other movers. We'll pay you, and if somebody helps you, we'll pay them. Well, Mark's wife was there, and she volunteered to help us, and so they paid her as well. And the three of us unloaded the first truck and loaded it into the second truck. It was no small task either. It was 5.5 hours of just push. It was 28 degrees. It was windy, and it was alternating between rain and snow the whole time. But we got it done. We were all sore and cold and tired, but we got it done, and we decided, okay, it's the end of the day. It's dark out. We're going back to the hotel for one more night. U-Haul is going to pay for that night. And we're going to head out first thing in the morning, which is what we did. We got back on the road, and everything went really well from there.